Hello guys and welcome to this tutorial. Today we will be using the CSS animation to create a neon effect with a snake border. So when we hover over our button, as you see, there is this snake border with this smooth animation, and then it's start glowing with this beautiful neon color. So we will be using only HTML and CSS, no JavaScript is needed, and we will try to keep it simple. So let's get started. Now I already created my two main files, the index.html and the style.css. And of course, don't forget to link your style sheet, your style.css, with the link tag. Now, to keep everything simple, I will style the neon effect first without the snake border, and then we will work with the snake border alone. So to style it, I only need an element, and I will be using the a tag. Of course, you can use anything you want, a button, a div, whatever you want, but like I said, we will try to keep it simple. So the A link for the href, I will give it a hash symbol because we don't want to go anywhere. And of course, for the text, you can type whatever you want. I will type subscribe, just like in the example. Now Control S to save and run it with live server. Okay, now let's put this here so we can see everything we do. Okay, now for styling, I want to remove any default padding and margin for every element I will be using. So 0 for margin and 0 for padding. Then for the body, because we are using the neon effect and the neon is a bright color, we want to have a dark color for the background. So the color I am using, background color, will be the color of the hexadecimal code 031321. So now if I save, okay, I also want to display my a tag in the middle of the screen, and there is a couple ways to do that. The way that I prefer is by using flex. So display flex, align items to the center, also justify content to the center. And now, of course, if I save, you can see it's in the center but not in the middle. And to solve this problem, all we have to do is add some height to our body. So 100 VH, which means viewport height. Now, if I save, okay, it's in the middle. Now let's work with the a tag itself. So what we want to do, I want to change the color to white. Also, I want to make the font larger, so font size 30 pixels. Now let's remove this underline by using the text decoration, none. Also, let's have some letter spacing between the letters with the amount of 3 pixels. And also, let's make all the letters to uppercase letter. And to do that, we use text transform uppercase. Now let's save. Okay. I also want to change the font family, and I will use the cursive. Of course, you can use whatever font family you want. Now let's save. Okay. And last thing I want to do is I want to add some padding, because remember, we want to style it like a button, and the buttons looks like, let's say, like a rectangle. So we have, let's say 10 for top and bottom, and 25 in the left and right. Okay, now let's do the neon effect. So a column hover. Now what we want to do when we hover over our a tag, we want to change the text color to the same color of the background, which is 031321. And for the background color, we will be using this hexa color, which is 2196F3. So now let's save. When I hover over it, as you see, this is the background color, and the color of the text has changed to the same color of the background. Okay, now how can we add the neon effect? We can do that actually with only one line of code, which we will be using right now. We will be using a property called the box shadow. And the box shadow takes 4 properties. The first two is the vertical and horizontal offset, and I want to set them to 0 because we don't need to work with that. But what we want to change is something called the blur amount, and it takes a number of pixels, so let's say 10 pixels, and of course the color of the shadow, and it will be the same of the background. So now if I save and if I hover it, as you see, this shadow effect looks like a neon. But we want to increase this shadow. Now, to do that, I can change this value right here to something bigger But instead of that, what I will do is I want to duplicate this for like 3 times and change each one to a larger amount. So this one will be like 30 pixels and the last one, let's say 70 pixels. Now, if I save, okay, this looks much better. Now, the last thing I want to do is I want to add some transition on the hovering statement. So transition will, let's say 1 second. And now if I save and hover over it, as you see, this is our neon effect. Okay, so that's it for the neon effect. Now let's back to our example. And like I said, we now want to work with the snake border. So for the snake border, as you see, there is this border that goes around the button and then it starts glowing. The snake border will have 4 elements: the top, right, bottom, and left. And the easiest way to create and customize this border in the way that we want is by creating a span within my A tag. So I can create a span and I will actually create 4 spans. But before that, when we want to target these span in our style.css, we can either say the A span and then use the pseudocode of the nth child. So if we have 4 spans, we can target the first, the second, the third, and so on. And there is another way which I will be using, and of course it will have the same result. I will give a class name to each span that I will be creating. So this span will have the class of top, and like I said, I need 4 of them. So 4 spans, and I will change the class of each one. So this one will be right, bottom, bottom, and left. Okay, so now let's save. Of course, nothing is happening right here because we didn't give anything in the span and we will leave it like that. But now in our style, we can, instead of using the nth child, we can say a span dot top, and this one will target the span with the class top. Okay, so first I want to comment this neon effect for now. So control. Okay, now working with the spans, we will position them and customize them in the way that we want. And before we change their position, we have to add something to our A tag because we will be using the absolute position for the span. We must make their parent with a relative position. So the A tag will have the position of relative. And of course, I want to hidden my overflow, so overflow hidden. Now, let's start targeting our spans. So first, I want to target all the spans and display them as a block. And for the positioning, because I set the parent for the relative position, their position will be absolute. Now, let's start working with the first one, which will be a span.top. Now, what we want to do is I want to start from this point right here, and the width of this border, let's say, or this span, I want to take the whole border. I will give it a height of a simple line, which will be 2 or 3 pixels, and the transition will be on the left property. So if I give it the left 0, it will stay right here. If I give it the left of 10, it will push it from the left to the right by 10 pixels and so on. So for the top, we will be setting it to 0. The left, I don't want to show anything of this line right now, so I will give it the value of minus 100%. For the width, it will be 100%, and for the height, 2 pixels. Now for the background color will be the same color that we used in the neon effect, and it will be 2196F3. Now if I save, of course nothing is happening because we set the left to minus 100, but now if I change it to 0, as you see, this is the line that we created. Now I will give that minus 100, but what I want to do is I want to set a hover. So when I hover over my A tag, what I want to do is I want to simply change the left value. Instead of minus 100, I will give it 100%. And of course, because it's animation, we have to add some transition. So I will add transition 1 second. So now if I hover it, okay, like you see, it's going to the left side. Okay, now let's target the second one, which will be the right one. So a span dot right. Okay, now for the right, it will start from this point, then it will go down. So the same thing will do. Instead of targeting the width, the left, sorry, in the top, we will targeting the top and push it from the top by some amount. So we will set the top to minus 100%, and we are now in the right side, so we will not use left, we will be using right, and we will set it to 0. Now this one is vertically, so in the top we make the width 100% because it was going horizontally. Now because we are going down or up, and when we are reaching the left side, so we give the width of some amount. Let's say width will be the same amount of the height in the top, which is 2 pixels, but the height will be 100%. And of course for the background color, we will also use the same color. Okay, now so if I save, nothing is happening, and if I use the hover effect and we want to target the right, so dot right, like I said, we want now to push it from the top, so the top will be 100%, and we will add some transition, and it will be also 1 second. So now when I hover, as you see, it's now working in that way. Now we have a couple of problems here. The first one is when I hover, the two lines are animated at the same time, and we don't want to do that. Now if we back to our example, like you see, the first one is the start, then when it's end, the right is go down, and when it's end, the bottom, and so on. So to solve this, all I have to do is I want to delay my right animation by some amount, so I can use transition delay, and I will give it 0.25. So now when I work with it, sorry, so I have to add second. I always forget that. Second, now let's save. And now you see when I hover over it, when the top line is end, the second will start because we delay it by 0.25 seconds. The other problem is the color of the border. As you see right here, of course, it's start with this color and end with the same color because we didn't change that, and we want to make it look better. What I want to do is I want to use a different property other than the background color, because I want to control my color and make it fade in the end before it's ending, so it will look much nicer and much smoother. And to do that, I will be using some property called the color gradient. So now if I go to w3schools.com and search for the gradient background for the CSS, you can see that I can use many properties. I can use the linear gradient of two colors. I can give some direction like here, or I can give some angle, and that's what I want, because like you see in the angle here, you can say that if we set an angle, if we set like 90-degree angle, the value will go to the right, and that's exactly what we want. Where if we set it to 180 degree, that means that the value is going to the bottom, and that's also what we want. So now if I back to my project, and instead of using a background color here, let's change the top one, I can use background with a gradient, with linear gradient, and I will give it the degree of 90 degree because we want to go to the right. I want the color to fade at the end, so I can't give it like a white color. Instead, I will give it a transparent color, and the same color that we use will keep the same. So it will be 2196 F3. So now if I save, as you see, it's fading in the end, and that's exactly what we want. So I will copy this, and I will also change my right background color, but instead of 90 degree, like I said, if I want to go down, I will give it the angle of 180 degree. So now, as you see, it's working perfectly. Now I will work on the bottom and on the left, and what I will do is I will simply just copy that, because the bottom is exactly the opposite of the top. So now if I want to change my bottom, what I want to do is simply, instead of top, I will use bottom, and instead of left, I will be using right, because it will be going in the other direction. And for the angle, to go to the right, we used 90 degree. So now I want to go to the left, so I will be using 270 degree. And for the hover, I will change the left to the right. So now if I save, hover over it, I must change this to the right. Also this one will be to the right. So now, okay, something is not proper here. Okay, so what's the problem? Okay, so I will have some delay, transition delay of 0.5 seconds. Okay, something is wrong. Why? Oh, no, it's not the right, it's the bottom. Yeah, the bottom that we want to change. Yeah, the bottom, sorry. So now if I hover it, okay, that's look better. Now the reason that I use this delay of 0.5 second because the right is for 0.25, so this one must be delay more time. And for the left, now I can copy the right and change this. Let's not have the same mistake. So left and also left, and like I said, it will be the opposite. So instead of top, it will be bottom, and bottom, and instead of right, it will be left. And also for the hover, okay, for the hover, we want to give it a bottom. So now, of course, you can see the error right here because we didn't change the delay value, so it must have 0.75 seconds. So now, as you see, it's a full rectangle. Now, the last thing I want to do is I want to change the degree to 360, so it will have a smooth effect. And after that, I can uncomment my hover effect right here. And now if I save, the problem is it will glow with the same time that the border is happening. And the reason for that is I didn't add a delay for this transition, so I will also have some transition delay with the amount of 1 second. So now if I save, here goes the border, and then it's start to glow. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like it, and I'm sorry if I confused you a little bit on the span and the classes right here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you can like and subscribe for the channel, and I shall see you in another tutorial.